Okay, let's start. In the previous recording, the mic was off, so I just recorded like 1 minute without mic. The thing is, today is gonna be a very chill class. Okay, I'm a bit tired, so it's gonna be a slower class than usual. No problem though. You can think about it. Let's go with the engineer's way of thinking. Let me see if everything looks fine. Yeah, it kind of looks fine. Let's toggle this on. So in the first class, we saw happiness, right? We saw happiness. In the second class, we saw intelligence, and we saw them in a pretty deep and logical way. We defined them. We did a lot of stuff with them. We mentioned a lot of facts and reasoning chains and stuff about it. And what was I doing while I was doing all that? I was doing the engineer's way of thinking. We already saw why happiness is important and why it's the core thing that drives humans, double H. And we already saw why intelligence is important to avoid conflicts, to everything, right? To have a common goal and then to coordinate successfully. We need these two things. And now we just need to be, for the reasons we explained in previous classes. I'm not going to repeat myself because otherwise it becomes very long. If you want to refresh it, go watch the class, go read the book, whatever. And well, now we need, as we saw, we need to maximize for intelligence so we can pursue our optimal happiness. And what is the most intelligent way of being intelligent? It's the engineer's way of thinking. As always, I have some notes. Well, let's see. It's a chill day today, yeah? It's a very chill day. It's nice. So, yeah, people are taking nap right now in my flat, so I don't want to be too loud and interrupt their naps. As you might see, I'm tired. It is what it is. And I have to party tonight. Oh, shit. It's a very chill day to party, you know? Anyway. Engineers' way of thinking, blah blah blah. The most intelligent. Why is the most intelligent way of being intelligent? Well, here we go. Everything I'm going to explain is on chapter 3 of Cheerfulism, and well, it's a bit related to the part 1 of the book. Okay, after this class, there's going to be more classes, but these are more speculative of how I think societies will change as we become, or if we all become cheerful and we all maximize for intelligence and optimize for happiness. And based on the understandings I've explained in the previous classes, we're going to touch on power dynamics. Some people call it politics. I prefer to call it power dynamics. Resource distribution. Some people call it economy. I prefer to call it resource distribution. Education. Some people call it education. I prefer to call it education. Clearly, this is a joke. Education is not a joke, but you get what I'm saying. And then we got how to put everything together. That's the following chapter in the book. And then we got another part of the book. Cool. Anyway, we're going to be finishing the explanation of part 1. And an important detail is like everything I'm going to explain in this class and what I've explained in previous classes regarding the part 1 of the book are things that I think are true, like objectively true. Look, this shines. Cool. Anyway, just had the thought. So these are things that I think they're objectively true and that they hold logically and scientifically. In the future classes, there's going to be more. I'm going to still use logic, deduction, and the engineer's way of thinking to understand power dynamics, resource distribution, education, how to put everything together. But it's going to be more complex topics, so I'm not an expert on those topics, so I might be wrong. But that's the good thing. You don't need me to be right, because thanks to knowing what's your happiness, knowing what's your intelligence, knowing the most intelligent way of being intelligent, you can create your own conclusions, you can have critical thinking, and you can prove me wrong or prove me right if you want to prove me right. So yeah, that's the cool part. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. This is touching my chin. Anyway, so why is the most intelligent way of being intelligent? It has a lot to do with the fixed variable resolution technique we saw. Remember, just as a recall, let's write it in red, for example. We have our brain, okay, we saw lots of information. The brain is like, oh shit, temperature goes up, no, stress, oh no. So let's create fixed definitions, let's create beliefs, let's create stuff with chemical configurations, CHC, chemical configuration. And then let's process everything, and then let's move the body so we can adapt to reality, survive, have kids, living beings stuff, right? So at the end of the day, we saw that this is done via creating fixed variables and then making the variables vary again, okay? And because this way of thinking, this technique for analyzing stuff, it's practically the same thing. Well, that's why it's the best way, because it's the most coherent with our brain and with our nature, with all the humans. So let's explain, right? How do you think like an engineer? We have been doing it actually in the previous classes. Right? And it's just, I have the steps there, I'm gonna read them. If you hear like, it's a fun. Okay, first step, obviously, choose a system. In the first class, we chose the happiness system. The second class, we chose the intelligence system. A system is any concept. System and concept are kind of the same in this framework of thinking. And now we have the concept of the concept itself. We have the engineer's way of thinking. So you take a concept, as we saw, like happiness. Okay, that's the first step. You can choose whatever. This is the concept. The system is whatever you want to learn. How to be healthy, how to play an instrument, how to practice a sport, a culture, like if you want to understand the culture of some country, you can understand yourself, okay, yourself. And this is something you should actually do, right? Analyzing yourself in the most intelligent way is a very useful skill to have in life. I mean, in general, there are lots of knowledges. Is that the correct word? I don't know. There's lots of knowledge that is very useful in general for humans. For example, the understanding of economics, the understanding of politics, the understanding of education, the understanding of learning, which practically is pretty much very similar to the engineer's way of thinking. And of course, there is more useful stuff to learn, less useful stuff to learn. It will depend a lot on your context, on where you are, who you are, what you like, what you don't like. But there's like general stuff that applies to almost everyone. And I will discuss which are these things later in another class, in the education class. But for now, yourself is an interesting system to understand. Why do you feel the way you feel? Why do you like the things you like? How can you mix these two so you can optimize your happiness, and you can do it in an intelligent way thanks to the engineering way of thinking, blah, 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 blah. So yeah, that's the thing. There is lots of things you can analyze. whatever thing you can think of, it can be analyzed as an engineer. Okay, and that's the first step. Just choose something. Okay, it's something you must enjoy. Well, you don't must enjoy it. You can also learn stuff you don't really like. In fact, learning to learn stuff that you don't really like is useful, because sometimes in life we have to learn stuff we don't like. You know, like for example, maybe the hunter, this is like, we will see it later, but to have a good intuition on complex parts of societies, it's very useful to reduce or to think about simple societies like previous ones, like hunters and gatherers societies. We'll see it in future chapters, classes. I'm super chill today. I didn't smoke a shit. I mean, I'm just very relaxed. So the thing is, what was I thinking? Yeah, sometimes you have to learn something you don't really like. Imagine you are a hunter and you are specialized in hunting monkeys in the savannah. Okay, this is a monkey with a banana. And you are like, hey bro, bada beam, bada boom. And then, oh, this looks like a, it's supposed to be a gun. Bada beam, bada boom. And then you do the fire. And then it's like, eating, alive. Family, alive too. Good. But what happens if monkeys just disappear and all your knowledge is like hunting monkeys? Then you will have to learn to hunt other stuff in the savannah. Like, what the hell? A giraffe. Okay? A giraffe. So it's like, oh shit, I have to learn to hunt this, you know, you're like, man, it's annoying to learn this, because what I really like is hunting monkeys, because you have been hunting monkeys your whole life and you're used to it. And for your brain, it's just easier because it's chemically configured that way. And you have spent energy during your whole life getting that configuration to coordinate better your body to hunt monkeys. But now you have to learn to hunt giraffes, because life is chaotic and sometimes, well, things just disappear because of reasons you cannot control. So you gotta adapt. That's why it's useful to learn how to learn things that you don't really like. But you know, that's just another knowledge which is good to have, how to learn things you don't really like. Like the knowledge of yourself, the knowledge about economics. Well, this is another useful knowledge to have, or skill, if you want to call it skill. I mean, knowledge and skill are not necessarily the same, but okay, that doesn't really matter for now. So we are explaining a lot of stuff in the first step that is not really, I mean, yeah, it's related, right? The first step is, there's 10 steps. You think like an engineer. First step, choose a system. We're talking about how to choose a system, what systems you should choose. For now, just, you know, while you are learning, make it easy for you. Pick something you like, okay? And then later, when you get more used to this engineer's way of thinking, you pick something you don't like, and then you get decent at it. Now, before continuing in the other steps, let me explain some stuff. Let's see. Yeah, this is what I want to explain now, exactly. This will be explaining following steps. This is at the end. Cool. That's really cool. This, yeah, understanding yourself. This is a really useful thing. Okay, let's just highlight, right, something I've mentioned in the previous class, but it's good to reiterate, because that's literally what is going to give you the understanding and the mindset on how to face improving your intelligence. Because as we saw, improving the intelligence, oh shit, it's just like training your muscles, okay? But the muscle you're training this time is the brain, so it follows really similar principles, like progressive overload, resting, and feeding important stuff. In the case of the muscle, we saw you have to eat protein, you have to break the muscle without not lifting too heavy, so you get injured. You just heavy lifting, call it that way. So all these principles apply, and the principle that it's exhausting also applies. You require energy because at the end of the day, you are changing the chemical configuration on your brain, okay? And that is energy expensive and exhausting because you use energy. So every time you practice, you're thinking like an engineer, you're gonna get tired. So you cannot just think like an engineer 24/7, 12 months, a year, and then after 1 year, you're a genius. No, you can get to the level of a genius, but it takes time. The same way you cannot just grow a very, very big biceps in 2 weeks, even if you inject testosterone. What is this? Drugs. Anyway, yes, if you use drugs for building muscle, you can build it faster, but then it has negative consequences. So first, better learn not to use them, better learn the basics, get a better understanding of everything. So yeah, it really works like training a muscle, training the brain. What else? Yeah, progressive overload in the field of the brain, it would be tackling concepts that are not too complex at the beginning. For example, in the first chapter, we tackled the concept of happiness, which maybe for some of you might be too big. Like there's a lot of things to understand happiness. So maybe you should tackle something, a subsystem of this system, which would be like the activities you like to do. And maybe one of the activities is swimming. Okay, so maybe start analyzing swimming, start understanding swimming, or maybe start analyzing something simpler than just the general idea of happiness. In general, the general definitions of big concepts like this one are hard to analyze. So maybe start with something smaller, like what is to swim, what are the best ways of swimming, how can I train my swimming, what factors influence how well you swim, which I'm gonna connect this to other stuff. For example, there's people who have better genetics for swimming, like wider backs. You know, that's better for zoom and you go faster. People who are taller, stuff like this. You know, there's like a DNA factor that will decide how good you are at swimming. But regardless of who you are, 99% of us can swim and can improve at swimming. Being intelligent and thinking like an engineer is the same thing. There's going to be people that are gifted for it, but everyone can improve it. Literally everyone. I mean, okay, in swimming, if you're one of these people that doesn't have neither arms nor legs, maybe you cannot swim, but that's like, what, 0.01% of the population. In the same way, in the intelligence realm, there's going to be a very low percentage of the population who are, as we saw in previous chapter, dumb, which is, I defined it as biologically limited. For example, in swimming, someone that would be dumb in swimming would be someone without legs and without arms, because how are they going to swim? They're just going to drown, you know. So yeah, everyone can improve the limit. Even the most drug addict person, even if they have psychological limits because of the damage they did to their brain, they can still improve their intelligence. So regardless of who you are watching this, even if you're a drug addict, you can improve. And that's really cool, if you ask me. It's very, it gives you hope. And I like hope. So that is I was explaining the progressive overload. Take things that are not that complex. Don't start with quantum physics if you've never tackled stuff with such complexity. But to think like an engineer, which we will see later. What are the other 9 steps? Another thing is resting, as we saw. It requires energy, so you cannot just do it infinitely. The same way you rest, recover your muscles, you have to rest, recover your brain, keep learning another day. Let's see, today I'm very chill, so I don't really want to use my brain a lot. I'll just see the notes. Feeding, okay, whatever you feed, to your muscles. It's important to make them grow, enough calories, enough protein, not just fat and stuff like this. The same goes for this. And the analogy for the mind would be the knowledge you're acquiring. Are you acquiring knowledge that is useful or not? Like, it's good if you analyze systems that don't really matter for you, because at least you're training your brain. But the thing is, if you're training your brain to learn about monkeys' reproduction, but you're never going to be taking care of monkeys, what's the point of learning that, right? You better be learning how debt operates, interest rates and stuff like this, which you might take some use from that. In both cases, just at the beginning, just pick whatever calls more your attention and practice the thinking. But then it's important what you feed to your brain, what knowledge you're gathering while you're training your intelligence. And what is this thing? Hard first, then easy. Oh yeah, true. When you train your muscles, imagine biceps, right? And try to do this curl of biceps with 20 kilos. It's like, fuck. But as you train more and more, 20 kilos will be like. Same for thinking. At the beginning, it's gonna be very difficult to learn stuff, to learn concepts, even the simple ones. They're gonna feel like exhausting. But later, you're gonna be able to understand way more complex systems, and they're gonna feel as easy as if you were analyzing the easy concepts. Like if you are analyzing, let's say for example, okay, this actually is a good example. I've had this example for a different thing, but I'm gonna use it for this too. If you have this equation, we're gonna be talking about this system of math right now, learning math. You have this equation, okay? And it's like, what the hell? Right? Some people, if you know math, maybe it's like, this is not that complicated. But if you don't know math, it's like, what the hell is this log? What the hell is 3 to the power of x? We have a division here, 88, what the hell? So if you know some math, if you know the basics of math, if you know that this is a variable, if you know what the division is, if you know what a logarithm is, then maybe this is very simple for you, and you can easily learn this even if you've never seen this before, because you have the most simple concepts, like the variable concept, the division concept, the logarithm concept, and they all join together to create the system of solving an equation, precisely this equation. And someone who already has this knowledge and has already been trained to think efficiently about these concepts, they will spend less energy. It will feel way easier and less exhausting to learn how to solve this equation. So imagine you don't even know what x is, and then you're like, hey, analyze the system. It's like, what the hell? You're gonna be confused you eventually can solve this, but it's gonna take you more time, more energy, and it's gonna make you feel more tired. For example, with the happiness thing, right? If you don't know how the human brain processes stuff, maybe it gets harder for you to understand what happiness is. If you don't know about some evolutionary principles that apply for living beings that last in time, maybe it's harder for you to analyze happiness. So maybe you should understand a bit of evolution first, and a bit about human cognition. If you don't understand about what religions are, which is pretty useful thing to understand, so you can understand happiness. Well, maybe it's harder for you to properly analyze and understand what happiness is. Same goes with this math, and this can apply to anything, like maybe to art. If you see a painting of a very famous thing, and there's like, oh my god, what is this painting representing, or what is this, why is the author, as you might see, I put a lot of dicks everywhere. It's just a classic teenager joke that I keep doing, because why not? And everyone can relate to this joke, so let's make it relatable. So this is the thing, right? Oh, what did the artist meant with this? Was he sexually frustrated? Was he gay? Was he whatever, right? Whatever. I think the point is explained. Again, these are not the final classes. Of course, these are like prototype classes, so I don't really need to make this efficient and good. And also it promotes your thinking, because it's like, what the hell is this guy saying? How does this make sense? And then you try to make sense of it. Like, you have to try to make sense of this equation if you really want to make sense of this equation. As we saw, some people will choose another system. We are still in step 1, but I'm talking a lot. Don't worry, the other steps are not that talkative. I am the one talkative, anyway. And we still haven't seen why this relates to the fixed variable. We will see it in the next steps. But I mean, we can start to see why it relates. As we saw, we're choosing a system. We're trying to define a system so we can later understand and play around with it. Definitions are fixations, and playing around with it later is the fixed variable, the variations. So you start to see, right, the similarities of the engineer's way of thinking with the fixed variable resolution technique that our brain uses to adapt to reality. Okay. So with this, I think I've explained all the things, all the analogies with physical training, with intelligence training, progressive overload, resting, feeding right knowledge, hard at first, then it gets easier. This is why it gets easier. Fixed variable resolution technique, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, let's go to the step 2. Let's go to the step 2. By the way, along the book, I have a lot, like 2 more examples, like maybe 3, pretty direct and very detailed examples on a problem that is analyzed and understood as an engineer. This equation is one of the examples in the book. But along the book also, in part 2, part 3, you can really see like how I apply this technique too, which also maybe it helps you to better understand what this actually means. But to better understand what this actually means, let's just go to step number 2, which is. Okay, maybe you see that you're listening to the fun again. Step number 2 is define what the system is with the information you have so far. If you know nothing about it, use your imagination. Let's explain that phrase. So we gotta define, we have the system, right? We have the system, and we have to define it with the information we have so far. And if you do not know anything about it, use your imagination. That's what we did with happiness, right? We got the concept of happiness. We know something about happiness. We kind of have a feeling of what makes us happy. We saw that it was dependent on multiple activities, and then we started figuring out the definition. We did the same with intelligence. We realized that it was about solving problems, and then we started grouping things up to create a definition. And if you don't know nothing about it, if you know nothing about it, and even if you know something about it, it's good to use your imagination, because that adds creativity, right? Your brain is not only capable of processing information, but creating information, let's say it that way. So if you add novelty to the remix, there's a chance you create something new and useful. Okay, so it's better to use your imagination instead of just directly going to the outside world, internet, AI, talking to friends. Never forget that humans are also a source of information. Yourself, talking to yourself, also as a source of information, like we saw in happiness. So that's the second step. Define the system. Even if the definition is wrong, you just define it. Happiness is blah 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 blah, right? And then intelligence is blah 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 blah. This equation is blah 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 blah. It doesn't matter if this is wrong and this is partially right. Just start. That's the point of thinking. Just start, you analyze, and then you correct as you go. The next steps are just the methodical definitions of how to correct as you go. So you start, you use your imaginations for the creativity factor. You also search so you can see what other people's imagination in life have came to conclude about the concept you're trying to define. It can be anything. It can be anything. And that's step number 2. Now let's go to step number 3. I'll delete it later maybe. Step number 3 is write down what you're trying to achieve by analyzing the system. Well, that's important because human action is driven by goals. And if you are interested in understanding a system, well, you might have a reason for that. And it's important to be aware of that reason because that can create motivation when you are tired. When you're tired, you should rest. But later, when you have to start doing effort again, you need motivation. You need a reason to learn stuff. It's like going to the gym. You need the motivation to start going to the gym. So write down what you're trying to achieve. Why am I learning what happiness is? Why am I understanding myself? Why am I understanding this math equation? Why am I learning to program in this programming language? What is the goal, right? You write that down. Because you need motivation, you need the guidance. You can't just, you can learn for the sake of learning, but it's better if you can use that learning, right? Do whatever you want. If you want to learn, maybe the thing you want to learn is learn for the sake of learning. So that could also be a motivation. If you're in misery, if you need something, it's better to prioritize those things. But if you want to just learn for the sake of learning, write that down. At least know why you're doing what you're doing. What is your goal? Because then, as we're gonna see, this is an iterative process. We're gonna be doing the same thing over and over again in a loop, and loops can last forever. So you have to know when to stop. Right? You can always dig deeper and deeper and deeper. In my case, we have I'm a software engineer. Okay, you can understand how a computer works. You can understand how the programming language works, but then you can get deeper. You can understand how the operating system works. Then you can get deeper. You can understand how the hardware works. Then you can get deeper. You can understand how the transistors inside the hardware work. And then you can get deeper. You can understand how the materials inside the transistors applied some voltage can create the binary representation of 0 and 1, and how everything coordinates to create a computer. And you can get deeper. You can learn what voltage is, and you can get deeper. That leads you to physics. You can start learning physics. Human knowledge is all related, okay? And you can get very deep thinking about it, because thinking is an infinite action, and you need to know where to stop, right? That's also important. Why you want a goal, because my goal is not to understand voltage. My goal is to program a website. So I don't really need operating system knowledge for programming a website. I do need some programming languages knowledge, and I do need the how to turn on a computer knowledge to program a website, right? But if I want to create an operating system, I need to go deeper. So a goal is not only important for motivation, but also because you need to stop at some point and do something with the knowledge and live your life. It's not always about thinking like this. That's step number 3. Okay. Let's go to step number 4. Step number 4 is divide the system into submodules with each having a different functionality or definition. If you had to use your imagination to define the system, then research a bit about how people define the system, then create a more accurate definition before dividing the system into submodules. Pretty long step. So, what is this? Man, I'm spending so many wet paper. I don't know what's the name of this in English. Towels, maybe wet towels. So step 4. How do we start with step 4? Well, let me see it a bit. Cool. If you have a very complex system, you have to divide it into submodules. As we saw with the math equation, the submodule of a variable, the submodule of a logarithm. You have, because you cannot just understand the equation out of the blue. You know, you have to break it down, get smaller chunks of information that your brain can process it. You have to fix some variables. So we are fixing, right? We are making the module, the system, we're dividing it into subsystems. We're making it more dynamic because we're breaking it down, but at the same time we're trying to figure out what these are. If you use your imagination in step 2 to define the system, now you can find actual information that some people have found to break it down, and then you start analyzing the systems as if it was these subsystems, as if they were a system on itself. Good. That's just step 4, which you can see: fix, variable, fixing, varying, making the multiple definitions. You start to see, right, how things align. So that's step number 4. Pretty long definition, very short explanation. And now let's go to step number 5. Step number 5, choose one module and analyze it by executing steps 2 to 4. But for the module, indeed, the submodules are just smaller systems. That's just what I said. We just do all the steps from 1 to 4. Again, for the different modules, we have the happiness, we have different factors that influence it, submodule, which are just another system that you can do. You have also to pick it, define it, as we saw in step 2, using your imagination, researching about it, blah, blah, blah. Then you achieve your goal. Why are you analyzing this subsystem? Because I think it's going to be useful to understand better this one, and also maybe it's useful to understand better these other subsystems. Sometimes subsystems, they correlate to each other. As there's an example in the book, for example, in the math equation, if you try to understand what is x, and then you also ask the question, what is a variable? We can see that the answer to these questions, to these systems, the definition of these systems, they overlap. X is a variable. So if you had the math equation and it divided into 2 subsystems, and you divided it into 2 subsystems, they eventually overlap. And this simplifies the understanding of the greater system, because it was actually just one submodule, not just 2. So sometimes when you divide a system into subsystems, the information correlates and overlaps, or helps you understand better other subsystems. So that's it. Yeah, you just repeat the steps 1 to 4 in each subsystem. Okay, so which is fixing and varying again and again. Maybe you need to break this one into more subsystems. So then you just do the same again and again and again. And when you're over, you complete and understand this, then you understand this, then you better understand this. We will see now in the next steps. Let's go to step number 5. Choose one module and analyze it by execute. Okay, that's step 5. Okay, what I said is repeating it. Step number 6 is check and redefine the system's definition if necessary according to the new insights the analysis of the module gave you. Then update the what are you trying to achieve if necessary. So this is like reflecting on what you have learned. Let's simplify this. Let's say we analyze the system, we learn some stuff, and now we have to reflect on previous knowledge. Does any of the definition contradict our initial definition of the greater system? If so, we update it. We can change it. It doesn't matter if we update it to something that is also wrong, because eventually, let's say that this changes this definition to be, instead of being x, it's y. And then y actually creates another subsystem. Then we go and explore this subsystem. And if it's wrong, doesn't really matter. We do the loop again. We go steps 1 to 4. Step 6, we go back to the main module or to the parent module, right? And then you analyze again and redefine if necessary. So the fixed thing becomes varying again. It's just how brains work, in search for truth and adapting to reality. And here, imagine the subsystem broke down into 3 subsystems. Step number 6 would be also going to the parent submodule and see if whatever you discovered here alters what you discovered here. Okay. This might start to sound very abstract, but as you practice, you will realize, right? And you will start doing it intuitively. This is like dancing. There are moves that are complex, but at some point they just go, like automation, because you've done it so many times. You don't even have to think about it. When you get a master of this way of thinking, of this technique, you will do it without realizing. I'm just properly defining for the people who have never done it how it should be done. For example, when you are dancing, when you're learning to dance bachata, classic thing to teach it, at least here in Europe. Yes, wait. I'm thirsty. They teach you the rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you start thinking 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. But once you repeat and repeat it again, you learn it, you consolidate it, and then you're not thinking about 1, 2, 3, 4 every time. And then they teach you 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you start moving, and your arms are very fixed. 1, 2, because you're thinking. You're fixing the variable of should I move my arms for the dancing. You don't even think about it. You're fixing that definition, and you're just thinking about the rhythm for coordinating your feet. When you get more loose, okay, when you get used to it, you get the knowledge. When you understand the submodule of the rhythm to dance the bachata, the bachata system, you get the rhythm, the movement of the feet, the movement of the shoulders, if there's some shoulders sometimes, but then you get it a bit more loose. You start analyzing this, you understand you repeat, you analyze, you think about it, you practice, and then you master the understanding of the rhythm, and then you realize that people who actually dance in a good way bachata, they also move the shoulders, so you expand the definition, and you don't define bachata just as a 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You define it as a 1, 2, 3, 4, and some shoulder. 1, 2, 3, 4, and also then you realize that you also have to move the hip a bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Sometimes you don't move the shoulder. 1, 2, 3, 4. It can be used to learning anything, as you can see, math, dancing, whatever. It's just the way how our brain processes information. So really, whatever you want to learn, you can learn it with this shit, and in a very efficient way. And at some point, you will do it as I said. If you're learning advanced bachata, very turn around while you do something, and then you will not even think about the rhythm anymore, because you're proficient at it, and you will be doing the steps 1 to 6 without even realizing. And I think I can explain this way better, but this will do, right, as the first test class. Okay, step number 7. Write down in a list any interesting thing you have learned or noticed so far. That's important because that will also teach you curiosity, and it will help you to find new paths. Is everything working? Let's see. Yeah. So what I said, for example, the bachata example right now, you learned about the rhythm, and then you realize that, oh shit, my shoulders shouldn't be super stiff. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Like more relaxed. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Well, I'm getting accelerated now. It looks like salsa. Anyway, no, salsa is more like salsa. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Anyway, and then you realize, oh wow, this is interesting. The dancing is not about only the rhythm, but also moving different parts of the body. And without you realizing, we are actually learning. This is a subsystem of the dancing system. You're learning to dance by learning a specific dance type. You're also learning principles that can carry to your knowledge of what is dancing. So you can, if you know how to dance bachata and you have danced with a couple before, maybe learning salsa after that, it's easier because all these submodules are also part of the salsa submodule, the rhythm, the don't put your shoulders just stiff. And this also correlates to any other field of knowledge. So that's why you want to write down interesting stuff that caught your attention. Just, I say write down, but it can be anything. You can make a drawing if that's the best way. You can cut picture information. You can make a screenshot, a photo, whatever. You can make a diagram. Just store it down somewhere where it's not in your memory because you can forget. Just write it down, somehow represent the information, whatever you learned, in the thing you like the most. You use diagrams, you can use different colors. You can write it down, typing it in the computer, with handwriting, whatever works best for you. Each of us, fucking out this English shit. Each one of us will have better ways of processing information depending on how we are. Some people are more visual, some people need to read it. I'm very visual, for example. I really see the things in my brain and see different colors and stuff like this when I'm thinking. That's step 7. Let's go to step 8. Step 8 is a long one too. Choose and analyze another module. This just means repeating steps 5 to 8 for that module. Yes, this time in step 6 you have to check if you need to alter or redefine not only the system's general understanding but also the one of your modules previously analyzed. Okay, so I can explain already step 8, which is what I said, right? Maybe you have the system that goes into this, and then you have to do step 1 to 4 again once you analyze the system, but maybe you have to break it down, and here's what step 8 is saying. Then you have to do steps 1 to 4 here, and steps 5 to 7 here again, because this maybe duplicates again, and that's like if you are into programming, this is like a recursive algorithm, but if you're not into programming, you don't know what the hell I just said. But it's just telling you steps 5 to 8 to do the same. Do steps 1 to 4 in this subsystem, in this subsystem, in this subsystem, in this subsystem, and build it up from the ground up. You start on the top with your imagination and information, and then you break it down, you understand it. And break it down so much that this is so intuitive that it doesn't matter if you forgot these 2 notes, you can recreate them because this is intuitive information, and that makes you more wise, more quick to react to new information and to learning, for example. But okay, step 8 is just what I said. You have to do the same for every single concept that you figure out, you discover, you create, you learn. So we only have 2 more steps. Step 9, step 10. Bada bing, bada boom. Bada bing, bada boom, bada bing, bada boom. Let's go. Step 9. Repeat all these steps until you have analyzed all the system or the desired amount of it. Well, that's what I said before. Remember that in step 2, I think it was, you write down what you are trying to achieve. I want to learn bachata in a decent level. You go through all the systems, rhythm, foot, coordinated, feet, coordinating with the other, the shoulders, the hips, this step, this other step, which a step can be broken down into moving the hips in a certain way or getting X flexibility amount. You just start analyzing everything until you reach the goal. You keep thinking like, oh, have I reached the goal or not? If not, you keep analyzing. And when you reach your goal and you're satisfied with what you have learned, well, you can stop. And you go to step number 10. Read and process any conclusions you have arrived at during the process to consolidate learning. And here is where something very important, which is just after you have finished understanding everything, which will take you days, right? If it's a very complex system, well, now you have to study the classic study that we all understand as studying. I mean, all this is studying, but now we do the classic studying thing that we're used to in schools of reading our notes, memorizing them, feeling them intuitive. Recently, I was in Bali in a boot camp to learning zero-knowledge cryptography. Doesn't matter if you didn't understand these words. The thing is that there was a very good teacher, Jeffrey from Rare Skills, and he he explained to us the concept of unstructured recall. Unstructured recall. This is a technique for telling your brain that you should remember some knowledge. And I didn't realize that I was doing it in step number 10 of my thinking like an engineer. What we're doing is taking all our notes, like this is bachata, this is happiness, these are the things that influence it, and you just think about them. You remember them. You think about them. You just don't look at it and try to think about them. Try to connect everything in your mind. This way, you're telling your brain to remember stuff, and that's what. Because remember, you only tell your muscle to grow when you break it multiple times. Then your muscle is like, oh shit, I need to grow. So it's the same goes with your intelligence. You're telling your brain to remember this knowledge, remember these concepts, remember this way of thinking about it, remember the process of intelligence and the process of the knowledge. So you have to, in a certain frequency, just sit with yourself and think about it, or read your notes. Reading your notes is also useful. Unstructured recall. In the book, it's not explained like this because I learned that this concept. I knew the concept, but I didn't know that this is a pretty cool way of naming it. Unstructured recall. You just start recalling everything you know about bachata, how it mixes together. You think about it, then you sleep a bit of it, you rest. Sleeping is resting, you rest a bit, and then your brain the next day is more intelligent, more fluid, more dynamic, because it's more used to fixing the definitions, breaking it down, bearing everything. That's the natural way our brain works, and you're getting better at using it. And if you start understanding dancing knowledge, and then about math knowledge, and then you can, I don't know, sometimes there's like overlaps between knowledges that you didn't expect, and that makes you more intelligent, more unexpected, more valuable to you and to society. You can also learn about whatever kind of knowledge. Art, painting, cinema, psychology, politics, economy, everything is this, because at the end of the day, what I'm explaining with this is the logical steps and definitions for how the brain processes information and how we can use that understanding and that knowledge to even make more efficient our brain. And the more things you learn, and from more diverse fields of the human knowledge, the easier it will be, and the more comfortable you will feel just learning stuff, and you will start to get addicted. You can get addicted to this shit. And then you'll be like, wow, this guy is a genius. He knows a lot about everything. And it's like, well, and he learns super fast, but it's not really that you were born as a genius. As said, some people have DNA advantage, like with swimming, but it's more like you have been training for years. I didn't realize, but I've been doing this technique since I'm 7 years old. So I'm pretty decent at it, at asking questions, breaking down modules into submodules, going back and forth between them, creating connections, fixing stuff, bearing stuff. I'm pretty good at this, but because I've been doing it my whole life. And I just realized recently how to properly explain it. And here I am, trying to properly explain it. Boom. And I know a lot of stuff. And I've learned a lot of stuff on my own. Thanks to this technique. I realized I had a need. I went out there and I learned it. Ideally, the educational system, the public educational systems should teach us this and teach us the things that we actually think we need or we want to learn. But I had to learn on my own how to make my training, how to make my diet so I can be healthy. I had to learn on my own how to invest, how to save, how to manage my spendings. I had to learn on my own how to be a cryptocurrencies hacker. I had to learn on my own piano. I had to learn on my own. I learned dancing accidentally because I party a lot and I dance a lot. So I learned dancing too. And I started to see all the similarities between all the learning processes, and it's this. I also have to learn a lot about, not a lot, but I have to understand about economics because cryptocurrencies are currencies. So you have to understand economics if you want to recreate it in code. Cryptocurrencies are just money represented in code. So you have to understand economy, at least how banks work, at least. So I had to learn this on my own too. I went to university, but it felt they were going too slow, so I dropped out and I had to learn on my own. So I also had to learn on my own. That's another thing I had to learn. And learning all this stuff, all these different things, has made me whatever English shit is like that, made me pretty confident. Just, what do I have to learn now? This, okay, I'll just learn about it. Oh, I have to learn about the neoclassic art of dog statues on the medieval China. Oh, good, I'll bring it to me. I don't really care. Also, my job is really, I explained it in the previous class. I'm a hacker, so I know the basics, and I just need to learn really quick every system so I can hack it. And that's also has trained my mind to even be better at this shit. And what else have I learned on my own? I think that's it. My family is not very wise. My family doesn't know about investment, savings, and stuff. Now they know a bit because I've taught them. They don't know about training and healthy diet. My father is pretty much obese or very fat, and my mother doesn't take care of her health either. So I had to go hand the knowledge on my own. The educational system didn't help at all either. So I really had to really understand, and that's the thing. And now I feel very confident and I feel very nice, and I see my future as bright because I don't care if even if I have to learn something as weird as this, I will be able to, because I've been in the unknown before. At the beginning, it's very, for example, the first thing I learned was training and dieting, at least the basics, so I can sustain myself. And that was hard as fuck. Then investment, it felt very hard too. Piano was starting to get easier because, well, I already had experience learning. So it was easy for me to learn piano, to understand piano. But if I had taken piano first, it would have been very hard for me. So whatever is what I said at the beginning. The first things you learn is going to be hard. It's going to get easier. And it's not like you're a genius. I'm not a genius. I've just been doing it for years. You know, it's like saying that Usain Bolt is, I mean, yeah, maybe Usain Bolt has some DNA thing that makes him run very fast, but he's also been training for years. You know, and that's also a very important factor. Same applies to intelligence. So yeah, that's thinking like an engineer. Those are the 10 steps. And what else there? Anything else to say? It takes time because it's effort. It's training a muscle. You're gonna get tired. You cannot just do it in 1 week or 1 year. It's a consistent effort. It's an attitude, a habit. You have to take maybe every Sunday, learn something new, even if it's a small concept. Maybe it's difficult because I know that if someone is like working 12 hours a day, the last thing they have energy for is learning. So there are different techniques that I will discuss now about how to actually put learning into your routine and training your brain into putting it into your routine. For example, my parents work in the bar. They are the owners of the bar, and they are in a very touristic area. But they are in the middle of nowhere. The population density of where I used to live, is the one of a desert. So think about it, like there's no one. So it's very hard to find waiters. So it's like they have to be working there every day, almost 6 days a week. So I know, and I had to help there. So I've also worked there for a bit. And I know that after working 16 hours a day for 6 days a week, you don't really have energy, because it takes energy. Even if it looks that mind and body are different, yeah, they are the same shit. That you both energy. So I always wondered why my parents are so old and they don't know shit about this stuff, and I know stuff. First, they didn't have access to internet when they were freer. You know, when they were young and free, they couldn't access internet and as much information as I was able to access. And second, now that they have internet, they have to work very hard because of stuff. I'm not gonna get into socio-economical critique of my country, Spain, not yet. But yeah. So I get it. It's really difficult. So that's why people like me who have the privilege, thanks to, for example, hardworking parents, to take time and learn, we need to do it not alone, but with people to improve society, because there's people that don't have the luxury that I have of being able to think, of coming back home from working. I mean, I work from home, but it's just an expression, and having maybe 2 hours and energy enough so to just sit, think, read, process information, and get better. So and then not everyone has this luxury, so it's better to, instead of going alone in this process, finding friends. You take a concept, you take a friend, and it's like, hey, let's learn this together. So you don't need 2 hours every day. Maybe you put 1 hour, your friend puts 1 hour, and then in the next weekend you join together in a bar, and you just sit, you laugh a bit, you make jokes, and you teach each other. That makes the process more easy to maintain and to do. And then when you see someone who is in these conditions, you can just make videos for them. So, because watching a video is better than nothing. It's not the best thing, but my parents can watch these videos with subtitles because they don't speak English. So that's the thing. These are like little techniques you can go do, right? Find friends that want to learn the same concepts as you. Teach them the engineer's way of thinking. Analyze, live life together, enjoy, share moments, share knowledge. That's what we are made for. Explore. We saw it with the happiness concept and with the intelligence concept. And that's why I'm actually doing these videos too. I'm trying to make it more digestible as possible for the people who are in these situations, so they can also start. In an ideal world, we would work like 6 hours, not get very tired, and then have like the rest of the day, and responsible citizens would use like 2.5 hours to learning, to improving their strength, their mind strength, their intelligence. Oh, this is falling. But we are not. Shit. My saliva went the other way. But we are not in this ideal world. We are in a world where people work very long hours and not with their mind. That's one of the main problems, okay, in society. Maybe I don't explain it now, but I really think that all the problems in the world is because people are not, or we are not coordinating well enough, so we can think, every single one of us, and improve our intelligence, our mind, our knowledge. And because at the end of the day, we are humans. If we start sharing moments, sharing knowledge, teaching each other, helping each other, we're just creating beautiful bonds. So it's like, it's a good thing to have. We should strive for this, right? For me, in my case, I'm very successful, and I really think I'm successful thanks to this, because I naturally understand happiness since I was born, and I naturally understand intelligence. I've naturally been intelligent about the things I've been doing in life. It was just a coincidence, to be honest. I'm just well built for that thing, but I'm not well built for other things. Maybe I have the DNA factor for these things. But people like me who have succeeded and that I'm making a lot of money for my age, a lot of money. So I have free time, I have good knowledge, I have good perspectives in the future. So I feel like I have to share this to improve the world. Also, like, yeah, I'm so, nah, that's not, how can I describe this feeling? Let's say I am bored, and because I'm bored, I'm also doing all this. This is like interesting. I like learning so much that I'm learning how to learn, and I'm learning how to make people learn. And now I'm trying to make people learn to learn. Yeah, that's a bit confusing, but it makes sense. Think about it. Analyze that system. So that's like thinking like an engineer, why it is useful, why it's good for you, the same way training is good for you, training your brain is good for you. Very similar principles. Yeah, just memorization is important, but it's not essential. As we have seen, is the fixed variable resolution technique, not the always fixation technique, or the always variable technique. We need both. We need beliefs, we need reasoning, we need science and religion. It's, as we saw, it was the two sides of the same coin. And what else do I have to explain? You can understand yourself, you can understand your culture, you can understand your society, whatever system you want. I said that. read the book. Go read the book. You'll get more examples, more detailed explanations. Even drug addicts can improve their intelligence. That's cool. In the same way, even fat people can get fit, even if they are fat. They're going to struggle more. It's going to be harder for them, but they can. So we should help them. Okay, let's try to close this class with understanding how all this, right? It's going to be like a glimpse of what I'm going to explain in the next classes on why the world is so fucked up due to this. And let's just wrap up with defining cheerfulism again, giving very simple lines of action so you can guide yourself. You can start being cheerful, and you can start improving yourself, and by extension, because you will need to improve them at some point, people around you. I mean, you don't have to improve them because only you can improve yourself and only them can improve themselves, but you can motivate them. You can be a role for them, a role model. Yeah, I think it's called like that. So let's see if this is recording fine. Sure. Mic is working. Cool. So let's go into the, this is pretty much explained in the book, but I'll explain it here too, why not? The current situation of thinking in society. So we come from the Industrial Revolution era. And what do people need to work in a factory? They don't really need I shouldn't have deleted this. Well, we saw the fixed part of the intelligence and we saw the dynamic part. Okay. They didn't really need the dynamic part that much. We were just in a factory. So people were trained a lot in memorization, in beliefs, in fixation. And people are not really accustomed, is that a word? Used to the dynamic part of intelligence. So what are these consequences, right? This is people who under environmental changes, they are not able to adapt as quick. And when you're not able to adapt as quick, let's say there's ignorance appears, and ignorance can be exploited by abusive people. Okay. And everyone is abusive, it's not like always, oh no, we are not abusive, the others are abusive. Everyone is abusive, it's human nature. So the thing is, we got the Industrial Revolution, we got the educational system made around it, so people are very memory oriented, so they can just be in the factory for 8-12 hours a day doing the same again and again and again. They don't need to think that much. They just need to think enough so they can save a bit, so they can just not waste the money and get fucked up, and then they can work. So they can come back to work tomorrow. So it's not much knowledge, and it worked. It's what it was needed back in the days, 100 years ago. But what happened? Then we get internet. We got a lot of technological development, a change in the environment, but we have lots of humans who are not used to change, and that creates opportunity gaps for abuse to happen, and stuff like inequality starts to appear, stuff like this, because people are just taking advantage of each other and blah blah blah, because they are of each other's ignorance, of each other's laziness, of each other's let's say mental laziness, so to not use the dynamic part, which requires energy, and it's expensive to be like that. It's exhausting. So because we were so focused on memory and the fixed part of our intelligence, and then we got like really crazy good advancements like the internet. Well, because there was advancement, now we have more resources, or we have access to more resources, and we have a better distribution of those resources, and that generated wealth and well-being, but at the same time it generated abuse opportunities. All right. And what happened? We had a lot of advancements in a lot of fields, but the educational system remained pretty much the same. Classes, standardized tests for everyone, stuff like this. One of the changes we have to do with our societies right now is to adapt the educational system to be more loyal to the actual way humans learn and improve and thrive around life, and be more loyal to the way humans adapt and react to reality and to each other, which is the fixed variable resolution technique. And I've been thinking about it. Class number 6 is going to be the class on the educational system. I'm going to propose a new educational system, new subjects, new methods. I've been thinking about all that, but that's just another class. We're just now understanding the situation of thinking in society, where we come from, right? To understand what we are, we have to understand where we come from, where our parents and grandparents come from. That was the situation in their times, and it worked for them. But now what's going on? Before AI, before ChatGPT and all these things, a few years ago, the technological advancement, well, it was going up, fortunately, but it was started to plateau a bit, So the growth of wealth was not keeping up with the growth of abuse, the opportunities of abuse that were happening. So we start to see more conflict. And we start to see, as because there's more wealth, there's more resource distribution, there's less reason for conflict, and the amount of conflict has decreased, as we have a lot of people see. But we still have some wars in the world, for example. That's the worst conflict you can have, a war. And that's the thing. Now, thanks to AI, I think we're going to see a decrease in conflict. That's just one of my deductions. It's not a sure thing, for reasons I will explain in class number 7, I think. Yes. So the thing is, but before AI, we were seeing, I think we would have had like an era where conflict didn't decrease, just stabilized. Why? Until the educational system adapted, or we figured out that it's actually the educational system we have to change to actually delete wars from the world, because it's the way we think, the way we distribute resources. It's more complex than that, and I will explain it in the following classes, but it's just the general thing. Because power is involved, and power is not related to intelligence. If someone is powerful enough, they can just abuse and control the reaction, the counter-reaction to that power. So that's an important factor that we will understand in future classes. But the thing is, this was like the wealth, right? The wealth, the resource distribution, stuff like this. Oh yeah, more technology, better resource distribution, but this is plateauing thanks to AI. That's a crazy big revolutionary shift, as big as the internet, I would say. Also, blockchain technology is not being called that much because people don't understand what it is about yet. I understand it. It's also really, really big change, but we will see an improvement and a decrease in conflict probably. Doesn't mean eventually, right? Maybe there's like a moment where there's a lot of conflict and then goes down, but eventually we will see a decrease thanks to the technological advancement. And now, thanks to the cheerfulism advancement, we can make this the minimal possible and create an utopia. Okay, that's my thesis. That I will develop in the following classes. But this is where we come from, okay? And for the reasons we will see, the over-focalization on the fixation of the knowledge and the not changing educational system, or very slowly changing, is creating humans who are not capable of adapting as well. And the modern world is a world of information, a lot of information, way more. And now we are living in a world where we have old humans ruling the world mainly, with minds that are not used to processing that much information and with control over the information. And what's going to happen? They are messing up. They are creating unnecessary wars. They are creating unnecessary conflicts because they are not intelligent enough. And they were not intelligent. They were raised to be intelligent enough in their era. But now technology has changed, and there's different and way more efficient ways of living, but they are not used to this. And it's hard for them to adapt because they were trained in the fixed mindset, in the more fixed, or the tendency to be more fixed mindset. So we see all this stuff, and now, hopefully, thanks to cheerfulism, they can start being more dynamic. And then in the future, if the new generations, they are cheerful, they can just be very dynamic, adapt, and fix the messes in the world. And hopefully the minimal abuse is no war. Maybe the minimal abuse is one war. I don't know. I'm optimistic for different reasons that I will explain in another class. That is like no war. And don't think that this is like a problem of the elites or a problem of the citizens. Both. It's both. It's every single human. Like no one escapes from this. No one. I know rich people, I know poor people, I know every kind of people, and I've never seen anyone who is not suffering from this. So it's not like, wow, the elites are so evil, or oh, the peasants are so stupid. No, all of everyone has to change something. Everyone. So as you will see, the more intelligent you become, the segregation phenomena of the elite versus the people, the feminist versus the sexist, the racist versus the non-racist, all these segregations, which at the end of the day, it's your brain trying to fix some knowledge in order to solve a problem. Okay, it's going to be minimized to the actual ones that are actually a real conflict. So the more intelligent you become, the less you fall into these partial truths or partial fake things, how partial lies, but it's not like a lie, it's just an incorrect conclusion. Some people will do this because then they create conflict, and they sell weapons, and they increase their profit, and then they are like in mansions and living good life while these people are killing each other with the weapons. Yes, but I think this is a very small percentage for reasons that I will explain in the future of the population. And these people who are living in mansions and they have like 10 cars, you don't really need 10 cars, but the thing is, all these things that drive the world, money, luxury, sex, lust, things that are forbidden, and they are like, oh wow, everyone falls into them, elites and not elites. And being more intelligent will just make you minimize how stupidly or how unnecessarily you consume resources, and how well you and how good you coordinate with your neighbors. This is kind of my thesis of what's the current situation of thinking in society. For example, recovering the analogy of physical training. 100 years ago, there was not that much emphasis on fitness, and now we have seen an improvement in fitness, at least in my country. There's gyms everywhere, people are more fit, there's still fat people and stuff like this, and unhealthy people, but people are becoming more fit. We are solving the, well, physical health crisis, but we are not solving the mental health crisis, the intelligence crisis that arises from the educational system crafted for a revolutionary, for an industrial revolution context that holds no more. We don't live in an industrial world anymore. We live in the era of information, where the information is fucking huge. And if you want to process it successfully without creating conflict and making everyone happy, you need to be able to process it on your fucking brain the best way possible. And that's what cheerfulism is about, to give everyone the same shared goal of happiness, so you can relate to each other. And because the humans, they usually are not that violent against the people who they perceive as part of their tribe. They're usually violent. Again, I'm talking about statistics. Sometimes there's violence between tribe, but the thing is, people try to cooperate with the people who see as each other, as part of the same group. People who see from the different group, let's put it red, they're just like, yeah, these are the others, we don't care if we use violence against the others. Sometimes we prefer not to use violence, because then they can violence back and we're gonna get hurt. But sometimes you're just out of goodwill, it's like, okay, we're not gonna hit the others. But why? Because they feel the others as the same each other. So we have this natural tendency of trying to minimize abuse, so there's more stability and we can adapt to reality in a safer way. Because we need, as we saw, for survival, we need security, food, water, and then for happiness, the less chaotic is the environment, the better we can just explore on our own with our neighbors and do stuff that makes us happy. So we have a natural tendency to just reduce the abuse, but to people we see as they are not competing for each other. But the moment we see someone else as the other, it's more likely that we abuse them. So why was I explaining this? Oh, that's why in cheerfulism I emphasize happiness too, because this gives us a very relatable goal. It doesn't matter where you are in the globe, okay? It doesn't really matter where you are in the globe. Doesn't matter, because everyone knows what happiness is and everyone can relate to it, and everyone knows what smiling is, what a good joke is, what laughing is, what like ha 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 ha. Like, if you start laughing, doesn't matter if there is a Chinese looking at you, an African looking at you, an European looking at, doesn't matter, they will understand what you're feeling. And it's ultimately the thing that drives everyone. Everything we do is to feel happiness. Once survival is granted, if the conflict is too big and you feel like the other is going to kill you, okay, then cheerfulism is impossible. Or we will talk about this in future classes. But as long as we have survival and stuff like this, we can use happiness. And even in cases where survival is threatened, we can even use happiness like the figure of a god. People sometimes just stop wars because they have hope, right? In the future, you can create a hope around happiness for a better future shared by everyone. So happiness is there because it's the natural thing we all share, and because we can all relate to each other. And if we have something we share, we are not the other anymore. We have something. At least there's some thing in common, like we can just, hey, remember, we're actually not that big of a difference with each other. We have something in common, happiness, and we have a common definition and a common understanding as per cheerfulism. And then, because reality is complex, especially nowadays with so much information, that's why you have to maximize for intelligence. So all the abuse, all the conflict is minimized because we're so intelligent. We can figure solutions even for the most complex wars, which is the worst of the problems we have nowadays. And that's why I think cheerfulism can help us to reach utopias, or at least the best utopia we can get. And precisely nowadays, because we have so much access to information, the engineer's way of thinking is very, very efficient. You want to learn something, you just ask AI, and in seconds you have information. Maybe it's false information, but that's where, because you know how to think, it doesn't really matter that much, because now you think like an engineer. So you imagine, you ask to the AI, you ask to the internet, you ask to your partners, to your neighbors, to your teachers, to your human fellows, and then you just explore, find knowledge, and you guide yourself and each other with the happiness goal. And what happens when something that makes me happy is something that doesn't make you happy? Well, then we are intelligent, maybe hopefully we're intelligent enough to find common ground and optimize. Maybe I cannot be the happiest I can because that would make you a bit unhappy. But because we are maximized intelligence, the likelihood of finding common ground is maximized, which that means that, well, the abuse is minimized. And then our overall happiness is optimized to the greatest amount we can ever get as a society. Okay, so I hope it starts to make sense what my vision is. This is not why I created Cheerfulism. Cheerfulism started as a guide to myself so I can be happy in life. And I just realized, to be happy, I have to be intelligent, and I have to know what happiness is and what I like. And I started living by that. And then I realized the wider conclusions that this can have. So I'm like trying to explain them to the people and see what happens, see if more people want to become cheerful, see if more people want to give it a try. And one good thing about cheerfulism is that it's compatible with whoever you are, whatever religion you practice, you believe in, whatever your job is, you can be cheerful because it's based on human biological facts. So as long as you're human, you can be cheerful. And There's no religion in this world, at least I don't know, that tells you you don't have to be more intelligent or you don't have to be happy. All the religions I can think of, they tell you exactly that. And if religion is just some fixed variables, and remember, cheerfulism is just telling you fix some stuff, vary some other. But if you don't want to vary your religion, you can just do it. You can still be cheerful while having your religion or whatever job you have, like another rule, whatever job, whatever city you live in, whatever culture. As long as you are allowed to improve your intelligence, you can be cheerful, and that's something everyone in the world can be. So you can be a plumber, a cheerful plumber, a cheerful Christian, a cheerful Muslim, or a Muslim cheerful if you want to prioritize this. But that's the thing. Cheerfulism is a tool. It's a philosophy, a set of concepts you can use to improve your existence and your neighbor's one. So it doesn't matter who you are, where you are, you can be cheerful. That's one of the powerful things I realized too. And that's why I'm putting so much energy into trying to explain this to everyone. And let's see if we can create an utopia in the future, in the next century. What else? What else? Is there anything else to explain, or should I finish this? Oh, the lines of action. True. True. Goes with friends. Yeah. So what is cheerfulism? We explained cheerfulism is maximize your intelligence to optimize your happiness. I created it for myself because I saw it was working, and I was like, okay. And then I started thinking about, what are the consequences if everyone is cheerful? And I realized it can have really crazy consequences and really good consequences. So here I am explaining it. So that's the thing, like the reason why I added happiness and intelligence is not because, it was not built from the top to the bottom. Like I saw like, how can I create, my question was not how can I create an utopia? And then I realized this. My question is, how can I be happy? That was my initial question to myself. And then I realized, okay, I need to be intelligent. I started realizing stuff from the ground up. And then I realized about economics, about politics, about psychology, about evolution. And I started building up concepts. And from the ground up, I realized, oh shit, utopia. So that's the thing. Like I didn't craft the cheerfulism trying to create an utopia. That was an accident. I just crafted cheerfulism, trying to be honest to myself, to my human nature, and trying to be happy with my life. Let's see if this works. Oh, kind of. I can erase. I just took a bunch of them. So yeah. That's pretty much it. Lines of action. How can you start being cheerful today? Well, first, you just understand, study these classes, read the book, understand happiness, understand intelligence, and just start learning. Okay, but there are like 3 principles you can use to be cheerful and to help, and hopefully that will help us everyone to just reach the best world ever. I want to see, okay, I'm gonna write it down here about the memory middleman. Okay, I'll explain this later. Just a little thing I want to say because I think it's interesting. How can you start being cheerful? Step number 1. I want to say it precisely, but it's like, when in discomfort, explore. Okay, that's the second step. Step 1. Always learn, and if in discomfort, question. If you're always learning and everything, you're living your life, and when something feels off, uncomfortable, stressing, that should be like a reaction to your brain, like, oh shit, maybe I have to think. Maybe I have to question. Maybe I have to take a system and understand it better. Maybe I have to imagine. Maybe I have to create information, gather information, think about it. When you feel discomfort, question, and be always learning. Right? Every Sunday, every Saturday, whatever it works for you. Second step. Explore in response to discomfort. Not only questioning is a type of exploring, it's like mental exploring. but you also explore the world. If you can travel, talk to people that are different to you, with different worldviews, different cultures, different whatever, different sex. Talk to transgender people, talk to girls, talk to men, talk to anyone. Just talk to people, explore if you feel discomfort. And do it alone, but also with people. You know, you have to do both. Explore alone, explore yourself alone, explore the world alone, explore the world with people, explore each other with each other, explore when you're feeling discomfort, when you're feeling stress, when you're feeling uneasy, uneven. That's the second thing. And third, do it peacefully, do it respectfully, and just be open. Like, just be ready to think like an engineer, to break definitions, to analyze new definitions from other parts of the world, from other people, and do it just respectfully. Don't try to impose your truth. Be open to more truths. Share your truth. Explain it, but be peaceful. Be calm. Be treat the other as if it's not the other, but part of the same. Even if you are different, even if you're actually different, just take that mindset, that approach of I'm here to learn and to teach if necessary, and if asked, or if if anything, but with a limit. With a limit. Be peaceful as long as you're being peaceful too. So as long as the other is being peaceful to you, you're peaceful to them. And if not, well, be ready to defend yourself psychologically or even physically. And when it's when it's a life or death situation, then you use violence, physical violence. Try not to use violence. Be peaceful, be respectful while doing 1 and 2. But if the situation gets tense, and it can get tense sometimes, try to avoid it as much as possible. Put all your energy. That's important to do. Like, if you can do these steps while you have energy, while you're not tired. Oh, the battery ran off. Really? Oh shit. Maybe I can do this a bit more light. Okay, so, well, it's good. This was the end of the video anyway. So yeah, just try to do it when you're not tired. Do this 1 and 2. Do it peacefully. But if things get heat up, don't be stupid. Just defend yourself. But that's like the last resort. That's how you can start being cheerful. Of course, as you improve, as you analyze, you will realize better ways of being cheerful. More nuances. You will analyze the system of being cheerful. And you will just do it. Oh, I can put some light with this. Maybe I can just put it infinite. Okay? This. Let's understand the middleman thing. Just a little fact. Maybe I don't explain it because I don't have light. Wait, how is the phone doing? That's kind of good. Oh, I can turn this on. Okay, so, in the past, you might say we didn't have computers. We didn't have all these information machines. And then maybe in the past we couldn't be as intelligent or use the engineer's way of thinking as well because of our technological situation. So maybe in the past this was not the best way of thinking, or maybe you needed something else to complement it. So what do you think? Okay, I'm gonna leave it as an open question. What do you think? Is this the best way of thinking? Nowadays, it kind of is, because we have access to so much information and we need to process it quickly and well and efficient, and being as less fixed as possible. But of course, we are humans. We need to fix stuff because of how our brain processes information, so we are not stressed. So, but the thing is, okay, this is the best now, but was it the best in the past? That's a curious question. What else did you need in the past if this was not the best? I have these answers in the book. Go read it if you want. At least the answers I think I thought of. Maybe it's not the right answer, but yeah, I'll leave it there because I don't have light. It's weird. The other day it lasted like 2 hours, the whole video with the light, but today it's like 1 hour and a half and it turns off. Anyway, Me and Capybara are gonna say bye-bye. I think that's all the class. Thinking like an engineer, blah, 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 blah. Oh, okay. Yes, yes. I have one little thing else to tell you. A website that is very cool to represent information because it allows you to write, it allows you to create shapes and stuff. It's excalidro.com. Okay, it's like excalidro, VREAW.com. You can even save your templates, use them later. It's a really good website to represent information as you learn. It's free to use, so feel free to check it out when you're learning. And yeah, ChatGPT, AI, internet, talking to people, going to class, going to meetings of knowledge that you like, going to conferences to gather more knowledge about things that you like, going to events, talking to people, all these things you can do to gather information and all this stuff. Anything else to say? Good luck. It's gonna be exhausting. So good luck with everything, good luck with life, blah, 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 and see you in the next class. Let's finish it with, I don't know what screenshot I will put in the video, but let's see.